What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your stimulus update and daily news report. So let's get into right down to what's going on. President Biden is changing his mind. He is flipping back and forth. We've seen this multiple times and we're going to continue to see it moving forward. We're also going to address a little bit of a stimulus update, what we're seeing and what is likely not to happen. I also want to talk about credit card limits, and we are seeing people are seeing their credit card limits get cut. The limit was cut by about 25%. I'll address what's going on there and what you need to be cautious of, at least moving forward. We're going to talk about inflation and also the affordable housing problem. Let's get right into it. Because President Biden has pushed for his economic agenda for more than a year, and he wants to see funding go to social programs and go to climate. But he also has to worry about more conservative Democrats as well, and that's where President Biden keeps flipping. He keeps on talking with progressives, but then he also talks to conservatives, and they say we need to be aware of our national deficit. We need to be aware of our current inflation rate. We need to be aware of the problems what will continue. If we continue along this same path, we have to make changes. Well, President Biden in recent speeches, he hasn't pushed for his economic agenda like he used to, so he's flipping. Now he's actually going over revenues and additional spending, which is signaling that he's on board with deficit reduction, just like Senator Joe Manchin has been asking for quite some time. Now, when you talk about deficit reduction, this is something that progressives are definitely not on board with. Progressives want to see Senator Joe Manchin get on board with their agenda, but the problem is that the progressive agenda is so far from what Senator Joe Manchin wants that it would never happen with inflation already sitting at 8.5%. So when it comes to additional stimulus and providing any type of relief to our economy, many people are saying that this can't happen. We have to reduce the amount of stimulus that we are already providing American people. So again, a lot of problems, but the big problem is inflation. So let's talk about inflation, because one of the biggest things that the American voters have said is that they want inflation to be under control. That's what they want. Now, many argue that inflation is at 8.5% is already too high for the average person to handle, and some are saying that's going up over 9% would be devastating to them and their families. Now, what you need to keep in mind is that many economists believe that inflation is actually much higher than the 8.5% that we're currently seeing. Some say that true inflation is closer to 18%. Now, many economists have questioned their inflation numbers for more than a year, and so again, this was back last year, I think the early part of the 2021. We heard multiple economists say that true inflation was probably about 14 to 15%. Right now, we're up to 8.5. Well, Democrats have a plan. Democrats know that they must provide something, and they need to provide something to their voters in order to get them to vote for them in the upcoming midterm elections. But the big plan from Democrats has been in place for almost a year. Their plan is to eventually cancel student debt. Democrats could not get President Biden's Build Back Better Act passed, which looks highly unlikely at this point. Well, they have to have a plan B. Well, their plan B, according to reports, is to cancel student debt. Now, I've said for months that the likely outcome for student debt would be forgiveness. That's what it could be, but it also made it very clear that forgiving student debt is far away from the midterm is to do this far from the midterm elections. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. It would still work, but it wouldn't be as effective. If this was done a couple months away from the election, and now what we're starting to see is progressives are pushing for student debt forgiveness as well, and they're pushing a little bit more. Even Representative Ro Khanna yesterday stated that $10,000 should be the floor and possibly go as high as $15,000 in student loan forgiveness for each borrower. But remember, the student loan payments pause ends on August 31st. Well, if they cancel student debt in August, September, that's a few months, 2 to 3 months before the midterm elections. And I guarantee you the American voters would remember how much relief they will get from this student loan debt forgiveness. Okay, in this program, so I guarantee you this is something that we are going to see. Now we're talking about credit cards. Let's jump into some credit card issues because many people use credit cards to pay for everyday expenses. But the problems that many Americans are facing is that their credit card limits are likely to get cut very soon. Now, I've heard from many people here in the community that have seen or heard of people that have gotten their credit card limits cut. I actually had a business credit card of mine that saw a 25% decrease. Well, it was temporarily. Then I called the company and said, no, I need this for my business. And they put it right back up even higher than what it was. So credit card companies are looking after themselves. They want you to continue spending. That's how they make money. They lend you money, you give him money back plus interest. But what many people don't realize, and again, if you think using a credit card decrease, here's why this could be a big deal. Because what if you run into a situation where you need a little bit extra spending power but you don't have it, right? There could be a lot of issues coming up we don't know. But what experts are telling us is to have the ability, the flexibility to spend money if you need to. That means having money in savings, paying down debt, having an available limit that you can run off if you need to for whatever reason. Maybe you need a new wardrobe. Hopefully that's not the case. But if you did that, I recommend not doing that. So credit card companies are likely to be lowering your limit very soon if you're not seeing it already. And one thing you can do is call the company and tell them, you know that I understand what you're doing. Please put my limit back to where it was and explain the reasoning behind it. Because in most cases, just a simple phone call is all you need and they will push the limit right back up. So make sure you go and do that. And lastly, let's talk about affordable housing. And I want to talk about affordable housing because many developers are under a lot of pressure to build affordable housing. But the problem is that costs are just too high to make any affordable housing right now. Prices and building materials is still way too high. And just consider this, it's actually looking at an apartment building. So again, building materials are getting very expensive. The land has increased substantially. Okay, wages of contractors to build that building, they've obviously gone up as well. And all of these are problems that don't translate to more affordable housing. If anything, prices will continue to go up in 2022. So I'm not here to tell you that affordable housing is coming back. It's coming back. You will win in a big hurry. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, promise I'll come back and share all the latest news and updates again. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing and I'll see you guys in the next video.